We sort of saw it coming at the end of the day, and there had been inklings in the pipework that this was going to happen. So let's discuss it. We are obviously talking about the cancellation of Star Trek Discovery. So, how do I feel about the cancellation of Star Trek Discovery? Personally, it's bad. I think it's a bit bad that it's cancelled, but I saw it coming. One, because I think that the series had sort of reached its natural conclusion. I don't know where it would go from the last two series, really. Apart from sort of going ectopic, I don't know where it sort of goes. I have found, though, with a lot of the newer live action Trek, apart from Strange New Worlds, and we'll get onto that in just a minute, things like Picard and Discovery, was that it was always something threatening the galaxy. If you've grown up on Trek like I have, you know that there has been things taken on Starfleet, and we had the war with the Dominion. We had Voyager coming home, but there was nothing sort of galactical event like we had in the last two Star Trek Picard series and the first 4 seasons of Discovery. Now, I've got no problem with that, and I've got to hand it to Star Trek Discovery, because without it, we wouldn't have Star Trek Picard, we wouldn't have Strange New Worlds, we wouldn't have Star Trek Lower Decks, and we wouldn't have Star Trek Prodigy neither, and we'll come on to all of them in just a minute. But in all, I loved it. I love all Trek. You have to. If you're a true Trekkie, you have to support the franchise, because if you don't, it will end up the way of Enterprise did. And my personal view on that is that us as fans got Star Trek Enterprise cancelled because we didn't watch it. Now, I watched it thoroughly every week, good or bad. I think as a fan, I think that's what you should do. I think you should support the franchise, good or bad. Point out the bad, but also support it, because if now Trek does disappear, we have no one to blame. Though, I don't think it was brought down by fans, because since Star Trek, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, the 2009 films started, there's been this big hate for coming from a very small community of Star Trek fans that absolutely hated it. And that's fine, because children don't like change. The world is changing around us, and we have to change with it. Otherwise, we are behind. We are the racist, sexophobic old grandpa that we all talk about, and where he makes some sort of joke, and we go, it's only grandpa. Those people are the people now hashing on certain things because they don't like change. And there's a great thingy in Family Guy where half the house gets pulled down and Stewie just stands there and goes, I don't like change, and it just sums it up brilliantly. And I find that the majority of the hate isn't specifically at an episode or something like that, because there is some good episodes, but there's also been some bad ones. It's about the whole Star Trek, and they just hate it, and I never really understand that. But through all of its faults, Star Trek Discovery got us other Star Trek. It also lasted 5 years, 5 seasons, so it wasn't all bad. Now, coming on to why it was cancelled, over the last couple of years, there's been a sort of massive emphasis on getting stuff out onto social media platforms or their streaming services, actually, promoting content on there and permanently keep it on there. Now, a couple of years ago, you remember that Netflix, when Disney Plus come along, there was a big hit to Netflix. Some users went. Netflix has tried pulling in more people by giving them more films, more shows. Stranger Things has helped, but it hasn't helped in search for they haven't been consistent with enough episodes or series coming out. And Netflix viewership has actually fallen the first time ever since Netflix started as subscribers fall. Disney Plus has also seen a significant number of fallen subscribers. In fact, the whole streaming service has in general. What does this mean? It means we are now more focusing on our streaming services, and we're only buying the streaming services as and when we want to watch the certain shows that are on them, and then cancelling straight away, because there's so much choice out there at the minute. And what we've seen is Netflix, as you know, have been cancelling series left, right and centre. They've been trying to save money and sort of streamline the service a bit, and that has happened with a lot. We've also had quite a few mergers as well. So we've had Discovery, Warner Brothers merger. That's come along. They've culled a lot of TV series. They've pulled a lot of shows from HBO as well. And they are rebranding, but they've cancelled so many stuff, like with Netflix as well. And there was an inkling now with Paramount as well. Now, we'll get on to Paramount in just a minute, but I want to concentrate on Disney Plus just a second, because Disney Plus have also done the same as well. They've pulled a load of shows and a load of funding. There was going to be, I think there was going to be about 6 or 7 Marvel series this year. They've culled that. They've pulled it back to 3. There's going to be less content coming out on these shows, on these streaming platforms. But going back to Paramount, so Paramount and Showtime were both separate. There has been a merger between the two. There was sort of inklings in the back. There was a lot of talk about them culling a lot of shows, focusing more on other shows than others, and taking shows away. And there was a real worry that with all this going on and them trying to save money and then pulling shows, was the fate of Star Trek, because there's a lot of Star Trek about. So we've had Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds, and Star Trek Prodigy. So we've got 5 series all up the go at the same time. It's a real contrast, actually, from what Paramount wanted originally. Because I remember when CBS, it was originally, started up, CBS All Access started, they said they wanted a new Star Trek show on every week of the year. So they wanted 52 new episodes of Star Trek every year. And they massively pushed for this, which was awesome, because they saw how Discovery went, and they went, we're golden. Despite the hate, despite everything that everyone said about it, they still greenlit a second series, and a third, and a fourth. But where do we find ourselves now? Well, CBS All Access became Paramount Plus. After Paramount decided to launch their own service, they had a lot of teething problems right at the start, with CBS All Access not being in every market, only in North America. And then we had Paramount Plus. Once again, that was a staggered problem, and I think that caused a lot of problems with them ploughing money into it but not getting enough back. But anyway, there's been the merger, and there was talking that they were going to concentrate on certain franchises but pull other ones, and that was it. So there was a massive concern about 3 days before the news came out that Star Trek could be on the chopping block. So we know that Star Trek Picard is in its 3rd and final series, and it's sort of going out with a hurrah, I would say. Watch my other show for that as we review the episodes on that. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. But we sort of knew this was coming. Now they've got a Star Trek cruise at the moment, and lots of the cast of Discovery on there. Now it's worth noting Discovery season 5 has already filmed. It's already filmed. It filmed wrapping, I think, in November. It's now said that it's going to be coming out next year. Over this year, they're doing a lot of reshoots, probably to sort of conclude a lot of the show series and stuff like that. But where does this leave the live action series? Going forward, we will have Strange New Worlds, which I believe has just been greenlit for season 3. Season 2's, I think they're filming it right now. So that tells you that there must be something there. Maybe they're sort of just saying, let's calm it a little bit on the Star Trek, especially live action that costs more money. Star Trek Picard's in its last season. That's pretty obvious. Star Trek Discovery was cancelled effectively. It wasn't this is the last season. it was effectively cancelled, and they've got to go do reshoots now. That is why there's a later date now for its release. Strange New Worlds may be out at the end of the year. We don't know with that. I prefer Strange New Worlds because it went back to basics, really. It went back to a different episode, a different, Alien of the Week sort of style, which I think Star Trek wanted to be, over a longer stretch arc like we got with Discovery. But anyway, where does this leave the animated series? Well, actually, the animated series and animated shows costed a lot less than live action, so I think they could be safe, but nothing is safe from the Paramount chopping block. I don't think this is the end of Star Trek, like a lot of people of doom and gloom are saying. I think this is a sort of a calming down, a sort of a relook at stuff. Now, we know that Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 is well underway, and obviously I think Season 4 of Star Trek Lower Decks as well is proceeding really well. I've got a funny feeling we're probably going to get more of the animated shows, Prodigy and Lower Decks, over anything else. Will they announce any new shows? I wouldn't have thought this year they would announce any new shows. I know there's one show that's been sort of penciled in, but nothing's ever happened with that, and that is the Section 31 series that they wanted to do with the Georgiou character. But once again, that never really got off the chopping block. It always was there. It was always written down. It was around Season 2 that there was talk about it. Then we had Captain Pike, and they said there was loads of fan interest in doing a series, and they actually greenlit that before Section 31. So it's still on there. I don't think it's coming. I think if it was going to come, it should have already happened already, but it hasn't. And that's it. I don't really know where else to go with this. So, but personally, I think that Star Trek Discovery I thank it for getting us to this point where we are, where we've got massive interest in Star Trek as well. But I do worry about the franchise going forward. Are we going to have less and more, maybe? That's what I would like. My other concern is merchandise. So they put huge amount of effort over the last 2 years in merchandising Star Trek to be, the #1 show for Paramount, and also for have merchandise. Now, they did bring Playmates have started re-releasing their toys again. We've got some here. We've got the Picard figure here and stuff like that. And they did start releasing them again. We've got the Enterprise up there. My concern is with them culling shows, is the budget not going to be there to produce more action or merch stuff? Maybe, I don't know. But my concern is we're going to probably get less Star Trek on TV, which means less merchandise as well. Also as well, if you collect the Star Trek ship models, which I do here, these are from Eaglemoss. Obviously, Eaglemoss went bankrupt. There's been massive talk about them, about someone coming over to redo or remake the Star Trek models. Once again, that now looks in doubt more than it did before. But like I said, I don't think this is the end of the Star Trek journey, the new Star Trek journey. I just think it's a little bump in the road, and we will recover. Where they go with this, we don't know. We don't have Star Trek Picard, which I would imagine was very heavily on the budget, especially just for the characters, let alone sets and stuff like that. So getting people like Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden and all them on board in one show probably blew the whole budget for Star Trek in 1 year. Just to get those many people on the one show, and then you've got to produce it as well. I think the estimate is about 5 million an episode, probably even more than that, 10 million an episode. So it sort of it's mind-boggling to think about, where an episode of Star Trek Lower Decks probably only costs half of that price. So you can sort of see why that they would want more animated shows over live action. But like I said, I don't think this is the end of Star Trek. I think it's just a little bip in the road, and we will get back on track. But ultimately, I have enjoyed Star Trek Discovery. There were some strange things that they done on Star Trek Discovery that I still don't really understand why they did it, but I still enjoyed the series going forward. Things like my serial network was really good, but introducing things like the spore drive I don't understand that. Maybe if it was something that they stumbled on, and they did use it to get into the future, it would have been better, I think, for Star Trek Discovery to have based the whole show in the future, other than where they started it before TOS and after Enterprise. It just seems a bit bizarre that the ship looked more futuristic. It had this experimental drive. They changed the look of the Klingons. I think if for me personally, if they based the show like they did from season 3 in the 29th century, and you placed the show first season, second season in the 29th century, it would have all made sense, because the second series, once again, it was a world, it was something was going to destroy the galaxy. It was Control, which people were saying it was just a Borg, but something else, and it sort of seemed that way. And then we had all the Section 31 ships. I mean, you could have still kept the design of the ships and then placed everything in the 29th century, and I think everyone would have gotten on a board a little bit more with it, I think, over than when they based it. But over the last 2 seasons, obviously the first season was more about the Klingons. Season 2 was, Control trying to take over the galaxy. Then we had the destruction of warp drive and another thing damaging the galaxy. Then we had the MDA in season 4, once again destroying the galaxy. I don't know where they go with season 5. Do they find something else that destroys the galaxy, or what? I don't know. But yeah, it is what it is. But yes, I have to just say thank you for Discovery. Like I said, without Discovery, we wouldn't have had the Star Trek shows we would have had, and I'm very, very thankful for that, because without it, we still would be sat here with no Star Trek whatsoever, and I think that's a bit sad, considering we've got shows like Doctor Who that's still on the channel. A lot of people saying that it should have been cancelled after the first season. I find there are some really good shows that get cancelled and some really bad shows that don't. And I think Discovery sort of sits into that. I think it was a good show, but it wasn't an excellent show. But that's just my opinion. I did like it, but it could have been better. But am I sad that it's gone? Yes. Do I look for the brighter future? Of course I do. I think we all have to consider that there's something else on the horizon. There's been talk of them doing a Star Trek Academy series, so that could follow the adventures of Discovery, maybe. There's also been now there's been more talk of them doing a Titan series because of Star Trek Picard, but I think all of those sort of things could be a couple of years down the road. We're not going to get anything like that very certain or very soon. But yeah, it is what it is. Look, let us know in the comments what you think about the show, good or bad, hate or not, and let us know what you think of the Star Trek franchise going forward. But anyway, that's my thoughts. I've been the Nexus, and as always, we'll see you at the next video.